Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, PSTD and PSHRM, for giving Fauji Foods this opportunity to share our story. It's a story which is still evolving. And personally, for me, it's been full of learnings. And I hope that I can share some with all of you today. So, a little bit about where we are coming from. I think the clicker has to be in that direction. No? Next slide, please. Yeah. So, and next one as well. Yeah. A little bit about Fauji Foods. Since 2016, the company was in losses. It had a very high attrition. At one point in time, it was as high as 35%. So it means in 3 years, you would lose the entire workforce. There was a feeling when I joined the organization that our ability to attract good talent was limited. It seemed that we were almost resigned to the fact that we can't attract good talent because of various reasons, whether it is compensation, whether it is our employer brand, but it was there. So in essence, if you add these two things together, essentially, you had a very weak talent backbone. On top of it, there were very limited systems, processes, dashboards. To give you an example, those of you who are familiar with FMCG, our secondary sales were all manual. Our value chain, of which milk collection is a big part, was all manual. So on one end, there was this very weak talent backbone, and at the same time, there was also this very weak data backbone. So in that scenario, we asked ourselves some fundamental questions. Next slide, please. Next slide. Can we have the next slide, please? Yeah. So the first question was, can this be fixed? And whenever you approach a business and you look at the P&L, perhaps it's the easiest question to understand and answer. And it does not take a lot of people to figure out what's wrong. So for instance, in Fauji Foods' case, our gross margin was too low, meaning our COGS was too high. Why was it too high? Our energy was inefficient when we benchmarked it with the industry. Our portfolio was not margin accretive. There wasn't enough value where we could sustain it over a longer period of time. And so on and so forth. Like I said, these are business questions. And they are easier to understand. And they are easier to figure out. However, the next question was more crucial. Next slide. Click, please. Do we have the capability? So if we know what the problem is, and if we know the problem, to a great degree of accuracy, we can tell what the solution is. This is a really difficult question to ask yourself. Do we have the capability to solve that problem? And then the third and most important thing, do we have the right culture to bring it all together? So how did we go about it? Next slide. Yeah, next slide. The first thing we did was actually digitizing and dashboarding right across the organization. One of the advantages of being a late starter in tech is that you can go to the latest version. So we, for instance, in secondary sales system, we said, what's the best out there? And we adopted it. For milk collection, we customized and put in place an end-to-end digitization of our entire milk value chain. We started capturing data and dashboarding right through the organization. I was just talking to Ali earlier today. I was telling him that now our weekly meetings are done on Power BI. So instead, there was earlier a lot of presentations being made every day, every week for management to review. Now we do the data dump, and the Power BI makes a presentation for the management themselves. But what does data do? The moment you have data, the first thing you have to deal with is reality, because that is painting an accurate picture whether you like it or not. The second thing is that many times when you have facts on the table, you're forced to confront your beliefs. I remember we were in this meeting and we were talking about why are we underselling a particular SKU? We felt that, there's more room for that. One of the answers that came through was, look, we tried it, but there was no offtake, and we had to lift the stocks off the shelf. And I said, that's fantastic. So we know exactly what the risk is. If we want to go down this route, we can quantify the risk. So how much did it cost us? And there was no answer. I said, okay, let's take time and come back to it. And 2 weeks later, there was still no answer. And 3 weeks later, the gentleman came back and said, look, I've looked into it. Actually, I've realized it didn't cost much. But that's where, and this has happened to all of us. We were, in absence of data, we talk through beliefs. We talk through our experience. But what data does, it forces you to confront that. And the third thing, which is very true today, is the pace of change. What worked for me in dairy industry 2 years ago does not hold true today. What were the big dairy occasions for consumption 1 year ago do not hold true today. In the world and in Pakistan, the pace of change is really fast. And if you don't have data to show that to you, you can miss it. And the decisions, in absence of that, will again be going back to your experience, will be going back to your instinct, which is very important to have. But when the change is happening so fast, you just can't rely on that. So these were the 3 things that we did straight away in terms of making sure that we move to a fact-based organization. Click, please. The second thing, which was a lot harder, and as a leader, I think it is one of the toughest calls that a leader has to make, is on capability. So we know what we want to do. We have a clear context in terms of numbers. The question is, can we develop that capability, or do we have to acquire that capability? It's a tough question because in essence, it's a question of potential. And as HR professionals here, I think in this particular area, the more tools we have to make the right call, the faster the turnaround of business. The more leaders in an organization are, if they are able to make the right call on potential, where to be patient and where to acquire. It's paramount, and it's a very tough call. It's a very complex call. Also, there was a bit of inertia when you talk to our team of, again, going back to, we were almost resigned to the fact that we cannot attract good talent. So in that, I remember I asked some of my teams to meet a few people over coffee. And I said, it's not an interview, just go and meet them. And they came back and they said, wow, will that person work for us? I said, look, why don't you ask that person? And little by little, the change started happening in terms of believing that we can attract good talent and what's possible in terms of talent out there. However, so we have digitization, information about business. We've made the tough calls and the right calls on capability. If you don't have the culture to carry it through, it all falls apart. Next slide, please. So in the culture, go back. Yeah. So in the culture, once you've made the right business decisions, so the strategy is in place, you made the right people decisions, so the right people in the right job is in place. it is really important to back them. I remember when our turnaround was just starting, we had a terrible month, unbelievably bad month. And the sales team were really, really down. And in the end of that meeting, all I said to them was, I took the name of the guy and said, look, I have got your back. And we'll support you. And don't worry. Because in difficult times, you back potential, not results. If the strategy is right, if the people are right, the results will come. And that was a very fundamental part. Also, especially when you are in an entrepreneurial, risk-taking environment in a business, you have to back people and let them make mistakes. If you don't allow for that, the risk-taking will just fly away. So I think that was really important for us. The second thing, and I've already talked about it, shifting to fact-based decision-making. What did it do for us? It took care of all the conflicts that were simmering in an organization. So the conversations, in absence of facts, will become emotional, and when you put facts on the table, it created a reconciliation amongst the people who wanted to make a call. Again, in the situation that we were as an organization, in the place where we were, it was really important for us to be a low-power distance organization. We wanted agility. We wanted fast decision-making, risk-taking. I remember one of these days, our NSM was visiting a distributor, and he called me from there and said, look, why can we not have this SKU? I said, good question, why can't we not have it? So I called up the factory manager. I said, why can we not have this SKU? He said, yeah, we can have it. And within a week, we had that product in the market. It's not necessarily a good